Hello everybody, it's Craig and Richard here, and this is the first of the weekly feedback videos. So it's great to be with you, and fantastic to welcome thousands of learners from all around the world, and a real community of learning that is tremendous, and lots of good posts as well. And just reminding you, for those of you who are repeat learners, and there are many doing the course again, this, of course, is the first run of the 4-week module rather than the 6-week one, which has been running up until now. So it's fantastic to have everybody on board, and there's been lots of good things happening on the discussion boards as well.
We've had over 1,700 comments now, which is really great. And once again, learners really supporting each other, offering advice, sharing their experiences, asking really great questions. And for some learners, they've done this course multiple times. And some are commenting on how a community forms on the discussion forums, and how that's one of their favourite parts of this course. So that's always great to see as well.
Yeah. And tremendous support too from Jen and Sherelle, who are two trained psychologists but very experienced in mindfulness, and provide tremendous support every day. They're giving responses and feedback.
That's
so
right.
Please follow Jen and Sherelle throughout, and each week they give us a summary of the key issues, and that's what we'll be discussing here.
Yes, and while learners can, of course, do any of the weeks and skip ahead if they want to, our mentors, Jen and Sherelle, will be actually commenting and really sort of responding to questions week by week as the course goes. And of course, that's where most of the conversation's happening. So we'd really encourage our learners to take their time, really do the exercises, put this into practice in their lives, and then share their comments week by week as the course is designed.
Yeah. Exactly. Now, a lot of learners are noticing, and this is good, about how distractible the mind is. And many feel frustration at noticing the distractibility of mind when this is actually a sign of progress. So if you're aware how much of the time the mind goes off, if you're aware, and even while watching a mindfulness video, like on the MOOC, to actually realize that you're just kind of staring blankly while your mind has gone off somewhere else. So these are all signs of progress.
Yeah, it's an increased awareness, isn't it? It's noticing that that's happening.
Yeah, because up until this point, if we haven't been reflecting on mindfulness at all, it's probably happening on a very unconscious level, and we're not even aware about how much of the time the mind's off in some other place and some other time.
Yes. Some learners have asked, what's the purpose of all this mind wandering and this default mode activity, which I think is a really fascinating question. And one of the things that we do, when we click off into this mode, we scan the environment for problems. That's one of the things that happens. So if you think about evolutionarily how the human brain evolved, once upon a time, life was kind of tough and everything was out to get us. So we might have been focused on a particular task.
Mind you, most people feel that way as well, just at work.
I guess that's true. What's coming? What's rustling in the bushes over there? Was that my boss? But, so it probably had an made evolutionary sense just to be a little bit distractible and just sort of noticing what's happening around you, and of course to be looking for problems as well. There's that negativity bias.
Well, I think the contrast between being alert and being alarmed, because there's something very protective about being alert. Mindful, because if there is something there, you need to see it, and you might need to fight or fly. But the being alarmed, I think, is very much a new phenomenon that we're creating. And we're creating stressors that aren't even there. I think one of the other things too about this default mode as well, it links in with the mind's capacity to be imaginative. And I think that there's a lot of advantage in being able to use an imagination, to sit down and to plan and prepare something, to sit down and do something creative, write a play. So this mind's ability to be imaginative can be used well. And in fact, I think it can even be used mindfully.
Yeah. We just have to engage the prefrontal cortex as well as the default circuit. So the mind's wandering a little bit, but we have an awareness of where it's wandering to, so it doesn't go too far outside the lines, right?
And importantly, we retain the capacity to distinguish between imagination and reality.
Yes.
Because when we're catastrophizing and worrying and all the physical upset that's a part of that, we're often taking these imaginary stressors to be real. And there's nothing good about that. And generally, that distracted mode of mind is taking our attention away from the things that do need us. But the ability to use the imagination in a discerning way, I think, is actually a part of being mindful. That is, giving attention intentionally to a creative process. And I think there's a lot of benefit in that.
So it is okay for there to be some mind wandering every now and then, as some of our learners were sort of asking about.
If we're conscious, intentional, useful, reflective, but retaining the ability to distinguish between imagination and reality.
Yes. And to notice some of these mental habits as well, that some of our learners were talking about noticing that the mind's tendency to get caught up in ruminating, which is sort of dwelling on the past and getting caught in negative self-talk, or catastrophizing and worrying about the future. And again, that's a real sign of progress, isn't it?
Yeah. And it's like that mind, instead of being a servant, starts to become a bit of a tyrannical master.
Yes.
Yeah. There's been some interest in the Buddhist origins of mindfulness, and we don't really frame it like that, because you pretty much find the elements of mindfulness in all of the world's great wisdom traditions, although it has certainly a very large place in the Buddhist tradition. Is it a Buddhist thing? I mean, I can't come into the present moment because I'm not a Buddhist, or if I come into the present moment, will that make me a Buddhist?
It seems like pretty universal stuff. We all have a mind that wanders and gets caught up in stress and difficulties, and we can all learn to train it and bring it back. Now, that seems pretty universal to me, that goes well beyond any particular tradition.
Yeah, no, when I look back on my teenage years and some mindful moments that I had, realization of what's the effect of catastrophizing about future exams and taking focus off the study I was trying to do, and the importance of being present and on task. Noticing that when I created stressors out of thin air, the body didn't feel good. I mean, I wasn't discovering that as a Buddhist. It was just paying attention to what's actually happening in the present moment. But of course, there have been a lot of very wise people that have really gone into this in great depth and formulated in what I suppose we could call wisdom traditions.
Yes, and so then when you start to read about some of them, it just makes sense based on your own experience once you've done some mindfulness practice, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And then we come to the formal mindfulness practices, right? So one learner asked, is mindfulness, meditation and relaxing the same thing? Well, no, not really. I mean, mindfulness is about being present with what is and keeping the attention in the present, noticing what's happening. And quite often that leads to relaxation. It's a common side effect because we're not caught up in thinking that creates us, creates stress and tension. But it's just a side effect. If you drank 5 coffees and did a body scan meditation, you wouldn't feel relaxed. You'd be very aware of all the caffeine and probably wouldn't do it again. Or if you've really got something weighing on your mind, or your mind's really busy and you meditate, sometimes it isn't relaxing. And so to have this idea that meditation equals relaxation, it's probably not the most useful idea.
And in fact, sometimes people get very stressed and frustrated trying to relax.
Why can't I stop my mind?
Why can't I? The body's not relaxing, and the harder we try to relax, the more we tense up.
Practicing a sort of judgment meditation masquerading as a mindfulness meditation, perhaps. Yeah.
So if we can learn, even if we're experiencing tension or stress, even if we're experiencing uncomfortable thoughts and emotions, if we can start to observe them and just create a different way of being with them, kind of a softening the attitude to them, the reactivity to them, then we may find that those things are able to be there. If they're there, they're there, but they create less disturbance on the way through, as it were.
Learning to be with things as they are without resisting them or holding on to them is a pretty good way of thinking about mindfulness.
But if we think of it just this as a relaxation exercise, then we start to try and get rid of the things that we think shouldn't be there. And of course that fixates the attention on them more, and it actually escalates them rather than helps them to just sort of ebb and flow by themselves.
Yeah. The comma meditation, the short mindfulness meditation, was very popular.
That's comma, not coma.
Not coma, 2 M's.
Yeah.
Yeah. And very, very popular because it's a very accessible way to start, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah, that's right.
And sort of easy to weave into the day as well. Some of our learners talking about obviously sitting and closing their eyes for a minute at a time as a very useful way to start practicing. But then others talking about just throughout the day, even with their eyes open, just taking a moment to pause, perhaps check in with the body, notice what's happening in the mind, just take a break from all that mental activity, and then getting on to the next thing, which can be a very powerful practice. And actually to punctuate the day with full stops perhaps at the beginning and end of the day, and then some commas throughout the day is a very useful way of making sense of things.
That's right. helps us to move into the next activity with more awareness.
Yes.
Should I be 100% convinced of the benefits of mindfulness before I practice it? Well, we could be waiting a long time. I think we'd have to be enlightened to be 100% convinced.
I'm about 98% convinced, I think, these days. How about you?
Yeah, well, I'm pretty convinced, certainly enough that I'm going to try and apply it in my life. We have to, I mean, there's a kind of unhealthy skepticism which just dismisses it without ever considering it, look at the evidence on it, reflecting on personal experience. And that person with that attitude is not going to engage, or if they do engage, they're going to engage in such a superficial way, nothing will come of it. We have to be curious enough, we have to be interested enough, we have to take into account, well, there is this evidence, maybe it's worth having a look at. Enough to get us to actually sincerely engage with the practice of it. And then the most important convincing comes from the inside out through direct experience.
Yes.
Not because there's research, not because somebody else says it's good, but because we discover something for ourselves. And I think that's a really important thing, is to have enough openness to engage sincerely with the practice and sincere reflection, and then see where it takes us. Lying down in bed, what do you think, Richard?
Yeah, meditation, Craig, they call that.
Meditation.
Yeah, which, look, there's no reason why you can't lie down and meditate, or meditate walking or standing or anything like that. But I guess something to be aware of is that it quite often leads to sleepfulness rather than mindfulness. So what we want to do is we want to make sure that we're cultivating a sense of being really aware and awake and present and relaxed at the same time. And sitting comfortably in a chair with a straight spine but in a relaxed way tends to support that often better than lying down in bed. So there's no reason why not to lie down and meditate, but just make sure that you're staying awake rather than sort of falling asleep, and cultivating some awakeness.
Yes, that's right, yes. Now, in terms of the body scan and overriding physical sensations, well, when we're moving attention through the body, we'll notice all sorts of sensations, some comfortable, some uncomfortable. And there's no need to override them. If they're there, they're there. But our reactivity, especially to the things that we find uncomfortable, of course, just like with uncomfortable emotions, can fix the attention on it in such a way, and the reactivity actually escalates the intrusiveness and the stress or the suffering associated with those experiences. So to be able to notice it without fixating on it, and there are variations of mindfulness to physical pain, which indeed we explore in the second course, 4-week course, but we're not overriding or pretending they're not there.
No.
And not trying to block anything out, and that includes what's going on in the environment, not trying to block anything out.
Again, we're just practicing being with those sensations as they are, without resisting them, without feeding them with judgments and reactions.
Yes, and if we're curious in a mindful way, we notice, a sensation we find uncomfortable, an emotional reaction to it, and we notice that actually escalates the suffering associated with it. So if we're curious in a mindful way, we actually see, so that's what's happening.
That's right.
Yeah.
Some learners already exploring the breath meditations from the course, and the breath, just like the sense of touch in the body, noticing the sensations of breathing is another really good anchor for the attention, because it's moving, it's always happening in the present, plus it changes, of course, the breath when we're stressed or tense or anxious, so it gives us a really good insight into our own internal state. And so meditating on the breath's really useful. And some learners have asked, can I do thought labeling or breath counting? There is extra tools that are sometimes used. Thought labeling is focusing on the breath, noticing the mind wander, and just saying thinking, to acknowledge that you've been distracted by thoughts and then bringing the attention back. Or breath counting is, of course, breathing in and out, and that's 1, and counting 2, and it gives the mind something to do. So when the mind's really busy, sometimes it just wants something to do as well as just being with the breath. But it's good to see that as sort of training wheels. It's a good starting point, and once you've established an ability to be with the body or be with the breath, I think it's a good idea just to let go of them, so that we can learn to be with things as they are without needing to add anything or think or do anything mentally, which is, of course, that strong habit that actually takes us out of the present moment a lot of the time.
So we're not recommending that people doing the course need to do that, but if a person is doing it, it's probably something that can be helpful.
It's fine.
But of course, if a person's, that's a worrying thought, that's about that, and I wonder why that's there. All of a sudden, we're engaged in an internal conversation with ourselves, and the breathing's going in and out. We're not actually in touch at all.
No. And ultimately, where we want to get to is just being with things as they are, being with the breath as it is, moment by moment, without thinking about it.
Yeah.
Just one other thing about the breath, Craig. A lot of people notice that when they bring their attention to it, it naturally starts to change it.
Mm.
And then people start to worry, oh, maybe I'm not breathing deeply enough. I need to control my breath, or, am I doing this right? And of course, these are these mental habits that we have that just create. I think if we were to notice during the day, we're often doing that a lot, resisting things, reacting to situations, judging them, rather than just letting them unfold naturally. And perhaps that's actually where a lot of our stress and tension comes from. And so to notice that with the breath meditation, that maybe that's making us tense and anxious, and to practice letting go of those judgments and evaluations and being with the breath as it is, might be a very useful thing to practice.
Just let the body breathe. I mean, the body knows how to breathe.
Does a pretty good job of it overnight when you're asleep, doesn't it?
That's right. Imagine if we had to do the breathing. Oh, gee, I had to wake myself up every 10 seconds to breathe again. It's just like... so the body knows how to do it. It's just learning to watch.
That's right. Finding time to practice.
Yeah.
Bit of a challenge.
Yeah, it is. The mind will prioritise, especially in the early days, almost anything else. It's a creature of habit, and mindfulness is not about habit, quite the opposite. And so the mind will do just about anything to resist it. Oh, we remember meditation. Oh, just do this first, and then we don't remember for another 3 days.
Later.
Yeah, that's right. I'll come into the present moment later, not now. And so to prioritise it, to think where is it going to fit into schedule, make time, and when we remember it, to do it. And but it will get easier and easier to remember. And of course, all the other things we do, yoga, tai chi, and everything else, all of those are really, as much as anything, mindful activities. Just final couple of questions too, but audio guide, do people need to use the audio guide?
In the beginning, if people are just starting out with meditation, very useful to have those training wheels, just prompting them to bring the attention back without judging what's distracted them. And of course, as we start to sort of go through the course and become familiar with it, we can just start to get rid of the audio guide. Yeah. And maybe just set a timer on our phone or something like that, just as a way of guiding the practice ourselves. So ultimately becoming independent. But in the beginning of the course, I think it's usually a pretty good idea.
Yeah. Okay, so I think that's all for this week. And so thanks for contributing to the discussions and following. And remember, Jen and Sherelle. And we'll be with you again next week, where we look at a number of other aspects of mindfulness and how we start to apply it to our day-to-day life, helping us with stress.
Managing stress.
Yeah. So we'll look forward to seeing you then.
See you next week.